I helped open 2 different restaurants within the same year. The crazy part is, one of them skyrocketed and the other one failed. They're in the same markets, the same hours, but completely different outcomes. And looking back, I want to tell you exactly why one thrived and the other one died, and what you can possibly do to avoid that outcome. So to make this simple, I'm going to refer to Restaurant A and Restaurant B. Restaurant A is the one that thrived, Restaurant B is the one that died. To be honest with you, I've helped open a lot of restaurants, 35 to be exact. I've been a part of 35 openings, and the reason why I failed applies to all of those restaurants. Now, some restaurants didn't fail, and some restaurants didn't succeed. A lot of restaurants just straddled the line, and I know exactly why. So let's start with A. So A was focused on hospitality. They were focused on guest experience, and B was not. But it wasn't as clear as that, right? Neither one of them were saying, hey, we're all about hospitality, or we're not about hospitality. Both of them wanted to be the best. Both owners wanted to be the best at what they did. They wanted the best food, the best experience, and the best ambiance. They wanted the best staff. They both wanted that. Every owner goes into it wanting the absolute best, and they're passionate about it. They're driven by it. They talk about it. They get excited about it, but 2 different approaches. That's why there were 2 different outcomes. So Restaurant A was hyper-focused on hospitality. The owner talked about it all the time, talked about the ideology. In fact, he put it in his training. In fact, talking about training right now, I noticed something was special about Restaurant A because I found the owner talking to everyone about hospitality. He was talking to the bussers about hospitality. Not a lot of owners do that. He would sit down with the bussers and explain to them their part in hospitality, what they can do to bring hospitality, and why their role was crucial to hospitality. Now, a lot of restaurant owners I know would balk at that. They would think it's a joke, or they wouldn't take it too serious. But this owner thought differently, and he sat down and talked with him. What I noticed about Restaurant B was there wasn't that enthusiasm from hospitality. There was enthusiasm to be the best. There was enthusiasm to outdo everybody else, but there wasn't the enthusiasm in hospitality. There wasn't the passion behind it. There definitely wasn't the focus on it. Hospitality wasn't brought up a lot. Experience was brought up a lot. Service was brought up a lot, but not hospitality. And definitely the owner was not talking to the staff about it at all. He was talking to managers, he was talking to his partners, he was talking to his friends about it, but he didn't talk to the staff about it, which created a divide. Now, that brings me to my next point, training and systems. Restaurant A's owner was talking about hospitality all the time, but he understood very clearly that hospitality wasn't gonna magically appear, and it definitely wasn't gonna just show up with a couple of days of training and a couple of days of steps of service. He laid out a robust training protocol for the opening of his restaurant. It was almost 28 days. It's an amount I've never seen before, but he was hyper-focused on it. He had experts come in, he had staff come in that he trusted before we even got on the floor, before we went over steps of service, before we went over the food menu. He was hyper-focused on talking to us about hospitality, mindset, what does it look like, why are we doing it, why it's important, how we can execute it, giving us ideas, giving us examples, stories, having us deliver hospitality to each other, talking about it every day. Then we went into steps of service, food training. But then even in the steps of service, well, how is every step of service connected to hospitality? Now let's go over to Restaurant B. That owner, again, didn't talk about hospitality. They went for the 10-day training before the opening of the restaurant. Now, I want you to think about something. Imagine you're a restaurant owner. You have to invest $1 million at least into a restaurant, at least to have somewhat beautiful ambiance, a nice menu, hiring people, uniforms, electricity, build out, food, water, alcohol. You have to get permits approved. You have to get rent taken care of. You have to get people hired. You have to get people trained. You have to get everything in that restaurant bought and set up. It is a lot of stress, a lot of time, and a lot of money. You're pouring so much of yourself into that restaurant. And then you set up that restaurant with 10 days of training for your front of the house staff, who's literally going to be in control of the cash flow of your business because they control your customer retention. They're the ones that decide if your customers come back or not. Not you, not your food, your front of the house staff. And you're choosing to give them 10 days of training, the minimum. That is a horrible approach. I felt it the moment I was there while we're opening the restaurant. Next, the owner of Restaurant A had hyper-focused on systems. All he cared about was systems. How do we create things to make the staff's job easier? Because ultimately, systems just give your staff structure so they know exactly what to do. That makes their job super easy, it makes growth very easy, and it makes accomplishing the goals that they wanted, that he wanted, the owner, much easier. Now, Restaurant B, I never heard the word systems come out of his or the manager's mouth once. They never talked about systems, they talked about steps of service, they talked about where things are, and that was it. And that will get you staff that's always looking for the exit. And now that might sound crazy, but it's not, because honestly, doing what you can to survive is simply just, hey, I'm gonna go in, no one really gets held accountable, give good service, as long as no one's complaining, and as long as you're making tips, you go home happy. But that's detrimental for the restaurant, because that'll lead to the most inconsistent experiences possible. When inconsistent experience leads to loss of trust, which leads to loss of loyalty, leads to guest retention plummeting, and guest retention plummeting leads to businesses that close down. Now, that obviously leads me to my next point, consistency in guest experience. If you want to open a restaurant, if you want to own a successful restaurant, the number one thing you need to focus on is consistent guest experience, because consistent guest experience equals guest loyalty. Guest loyalty equals guest retention equals to profits. That's how it works. You cannot survive without a high guest retention rate. The higher your guest retention rate, the higher the profits are, the more money you make. And that's where you start not only surviving, but thriving and then scaling. If you're not focused on that, if you're not developing that consistently, then you're going to lose. The restaurant industry is insanely competitive, and people are going to be opening restaurants all the time. How do you protect that? Consistent guest experience. Proper training and systems. If you don't have comprehensive, mapped out training, if I can't ask you, how would you rate your training on a scale of 1 to 10, you can't answer me 100% confident, 10 out of 10, then you're letting someone else eat your lunch. And guest retention, super easy. This is a statistic. Someone comes into your restaurant, they need to have good food, not great, good, and a great guest experience, they're gonna come back. They'll come back a second time and have good food, great experience, they'll come back again. A third time they come back, statistically, you've earned their loyalty. They fully trust that you're going to give them the best guest experience possible. You've earned their trust, it's not a fluke. They know that this is what's gonna happen every time they come in. Someone can come in 50 times into your restaurant and have a great experience and good food, and then all it takes to end that guest retention is one bad experience, one. It's that old saying, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it burned down in one. Consistent guest experience. Focus on protecting your restaurant. Now, customer retention is the name of the game, but there are some tools and strategies that you can use to also benefit your business, to also make your business more profitable besides customer retention, and that is upselling. Upselling, upselling, upselling. I've been in the industry for 20 years. I don't understand why restaurants don't focus on this. It blows my mind. Now, let me tell you what a normal restaurant will do to upsell. They'll ask the staff to do something, they'll have a special, recommend it to the staff, and every now and then hold a promotion, hold a contest. You'll get this free bottle of wine, you'll get this gift card, you'll get this, you'll get that if you sell the most X, Y, and Z. That is the most minimal thing you can do to upsell. It's absolutely the most minimal thing you can do. And again, you're eating your own profits. You're already paying your staff to be there. You're already training your staff. Why not train them properly on upselling? Yes, you're gonna get some rock stars that come in every now and then. They're gonna upsell on their own. They're great, they're awesome. We're not worried about them. I'm talking about the other 90% of your staff who doesn't upsell on their own. How do we get them to do it? We make it a part of the culture. How do you make it part of the culture? You create training for it, you create strategy for it, and then you hold them accountable. They're gonna have to upsell a certain amount. Now, that might seem a little rough, but that's because it's not in your culture yet. Once you embed that in your culture and it becomes second nature, just like when a bartender cashes out and he has a cash drawer at the end of the day, he has to turn in the cash. It's not optional, right? And it's not unfair. It's not you asking too much. It's part of the job. That's what we have to do with upselling. They upsell more, the business wins, they get more tips. We have to give them the tools to make it easy for them so they're more motivated to do it. And I promise you, if you do this, you're gonna see a 5 to 8% increase in your check averages. And that brings me to my next point, company culture. Company A focused on restaurant culture. That was their mission, that was their goal. Again, just like hospitality, that restaurant owner constantly talked about culture. He had a vision and he wanted to embed it, and he started with the training and the systems. And then proper leadership will make them feel like they're working at a place they want to work. That's what we call growth culture. I want to be there. I want to move up. I want to stay longer. Money won't be an object. Someone can't pay me more money to leave because I honestly enjoy my job here so much. I don't want to risk working in a worse environment. I'll take the environment over the money. But restaurant owner B never focused on culture. Again, that word never came out of his mouth. He talked about how amazing the menu is going to be, how amazing the ambiance is going to be. He spent twice as much more money than restaurant A to build out his restaurant. And he couldn't talk about how beautiful it is, how it's going to be the best one in town, how it's going to be the most beautiful. People are going to photograph it. It's going to be on Instagram, all this stuff, but he never talked about culture. Culture is what's going to be the fuel to your restaurant's longevity. So, long story short, Restaurant B, they went out of business in over 3.5 years. They didn't even make it to the 5-year mark. By 2 years in, they were struggling to even fill up the restaurant on a Saturday night. I saw it in real time. And the sad part about it is it was a beautiful restaurant and they had an amazing menu. But that's not enough because bad experiences are going to kill your restaurant faster than anything else. Restaurant A actually started off slower. They did not have as much hype. They did not have as much business at first, but their business slowly grew year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4 because of the testament of the focus on the guest experience, employee experience, hospitality, and culture. Now, all of this starts with training and systems. That's what Restaurant A focused on. That was their backbone. And I'll tell you this right now, if you're a restaurant owner, I can guarantee you 90% of your struggles outside of finances, yes, your rent is not included in this, if food costs go up, it's not included in this, but outside of that, 90% of your headaches comes from dysfunctional training and systems. There's something wrong with your training and systems that's leading up to what your headache is. I'm micromanaging, I can't get my staff to do things, I can't get them to give hospitality, I can't keep people employed, I'm having a hard time hiring. All of those things that have to do with employees are directly linked to training and systems if you reverse engineer. So, if you really want to have longevity in the restaurant industry, I would highly recommend hyper-focusing on training and systems, and success will follow.